The morning sun cast long shadows across the military airbase as Captain Sarah Mitchell walked toward the briefing room. Her boots clicked against the concrete with practiced precision, each step echoing the determination that had brought her this far. Around her, the sounds of jets warming up filled the air with a mechanical symphony that made her heart race with anticipation. Sarah had always been different from other girls her age. While her classmates played with dolls and dreamed of becoming teachers or nurses, she spent hours watching planes slice through the clouds above her small hometown. Her father, retired Air Force mechanic, noticed her fascination early on and encouraged what others called an unusual interest for a young woman. Growing up in rural Montana, Sarah's childhood was filled with visits to air shows and countless hours in her father's workshop, learning about engines and aerodynamics. Her mother worried that such interest would make her daughter an outsider among her peers, but Sarah never cared about fitting in. The sky called to her in a way that nothing else could. When she turned 16, Sarah convinced her father to take her for flying lessons at the local airstrip. The instructor, an old-timer named Chuck Peterson, was skeptical at first. He had taught hundreds of students over the years, mostly men who dreamed of becoming commercial pilots or joining military. But Sarah was different. She absorbed every lesson like a sponge, asking questions that showed she understood not just the mechanics of flying, but the art of it. Chuck still remembered the first time Sarah took the control solo. Most students were nervous, making jerky movements and overcorrecting every small deviation. Sarah was smooth and natural, as if she had been born to fly. She handled the small Cessna like an extension of herself, reading the wind and responding to the aircraft's subtle communications with an intuition that couldn't be taught. After high school, Sarah's path was clear. Despite pressure from family friends to pursue a more traditional career, she applied to the Air Force Academy. The acceptance process was grueling, with physical tests, academic evaluations, and psychological assessments designed to weed out all but the most determined candidates. Sarah excelled in every area, but she quickly learned that being exceptional wasn't enough to guarantee respect. The academy was a harsh environment for any cadet, but it was especially challenging for the few women who managed to gain admission. Sarah faced constant scrutiny and doubt from instructors and fellow cadets who questioned whether women belonged in combat roles. Some of the criticism was subtle, being passed over for leadership positions or having her achievements attributed to affirmative action rather than merit. Other challenges were more direct, with classmates openly stating that women lacked the physical and mental toughness required for military aviation. Sarah's response was to outwork everyone around her. While other cadets socialized or relaxed during their limited free time, she spent extra hours in the flight simulators, studying technical manuals, and pushing herself through additional physical training. Her academic scores were consistently at the top of her class, and her performance in the air was nothing short of remarkable. During her second year at the academy, Sarah caught the attention of Colonel James Harrison, a decorated fighter pilot who served as an instructor for advanced flight training. Colonel Harrison had initially been skeptical about women in combat roles, but Sarah's performance forced him to reconsider his preconceptions. She possessed a rare combination of technical skill, tactical thinking, and the kind of calm under pressure that separated good pilots from great ones. The training missions became increasingly complex as Sarah progressed through the program. She learned to handle high-performance jets, practice aerial combat maneuvers, and coordinate with ground forces during simulated missions. Each challenge seemed designed to push cadets to their breaking point, and many of Sarah's classmates struggled to keep up with the demanding pace. Sarah thrived in this environment. The faster and more complex the aircraft, the more comfortable she seemed. During one particularly challenging exercise, she was tasked with intercepting a simulated enemy bomber while avoiding multiple hostile fighters. Most cadets would have focused on one objective at a time, but Sarah managed to coordinate a strategy that allowed her to neutralize the fighter threats while still completing the primary mission. Her approach was so innovative that it became a case study used in subsequent classes. Despite her obvious talent, Sarah faced resistance from some quarters of the military establishment. There was an unspoken belief among many senior officers that combat aviation was a man's domain, requiring a level of aggression and physical strength that women simply couldn't match. These attitudes weren't just based on tradition. They reflected genuine concerns about unit cohesion and the practical challenges of integrating women into previously all-male squadrons. The debate about women in combat roles intensified during Sarah's final year at the academy. Congress was considering legislation that would open more military positions to women, but the discussion was contentious. Opponents argued that physical differences between men and women made integrated units less effective, while supporters contended that excluding qualified individuals based on gender weakened the military's overall capabilities. Sarah found herself at the center of these discussions, whether she wanted to be or not. Reporters occasionally contacted her for interviews, and military officials sometimes used her achievements to support their arguments about women's capabilities. She preferred to let her performance speak for itself, but she understood that her success or failure would influence opportunities for other women who shared her dreams. The pressure was immense, but Sarah had learned to channel stress into focus. During her final flight evaluation, she was required to demonstrate mastery of complex aerial maneuvers while being evaluated by a panel of senior officers. The test was designed to simulate the kind of high-pressure situations that combat pilots might face, with multiple objectives and constantly changing conditions. Sarah's performance during the evaluation was flawless. She executed every maneuver with precision, adapted quickly to unexpected scenarios, and maintained perfect communication with ground control throughout the exercise. When she landed and removed her helmet, there was a moment of silence from the evaluating officers before they began asking detailed questions about her approach to various challenges during the flight. Colonel Harrison, who had watched her progress over 3 years, later told Sarah that her evaluation was among the best he had ever witnessed. Her combination of technical skill and tactical innovation set her apart not just from other cadets, but from many experienced pilots he had worked with during his 20-year career. Graduation from the academy was a bittersweet moment for Sarah. She had achieved her goal of becoming an Air Force officer and earning her pilot wings, but she knew that the real challenges lay ahead. The military was slowly opening more opportunities for women, but combat assignments remained limited. Most female pilots were assigned to transport or support roles, important missions that didn't involve direct combat with enemy forces. Sarah's first assignment was to a transport squadron based in Nevada. The work was important, moving personnel and supplies to support various military operations around the world, but it wasn't the fighter pilot role she had trained for and dreamed about. She approached her new duties with the same dedication she had shown at the academy, quickly establishing herself as one of the squadron's most reliable and skilled pilots. Flying transport aircraft taught Sarah lessons that would prove invaluable later in her career. She learned to handle large, complex aircraft in challenging conditions, coordinating with air traffic control and ground crews to ensure safe and efficient operations. The missions took her around the world, exposing her to different cultures and operational environments that broadened her understanding of global military operations. During her second year with the Transport Squadron, Sarah volunteered for increasingly challenging assignments. When other pilots avoided difficult weather conditions or complicated logistics, she stepped forward to take on the missions. Her willingness to accept challenging assignments and her consistent performance earned respect from her squadron mates and superiors. The squadron commander, Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Williams, was one of the few senior female officers in the Air Force at that time. She had faced many of the same challenges that Sarah was experiencing and understood the unique pressures that came with being a woman in a male-dominated field. Colonel Williams became both a mentor and an advocate for Sarah, helping her navigate the political and social complexities of military life while continuing to develop her flying skills. Under Colonel Williams's guidance, Sarah began to understand that excellence in flying was only part of what would be required for advancement in her career. She needed to develop leadership skills, understand military strategy and tactics, and build relationships with officers who could influence future assignments. This political aspect of military life was challenging for Sarah, who preferred the straightforward nature of flying to the complex interpersonal dynamics of military bureaucracy. Despite the challenges, Sarah's reputation as an exceptional pilot continued to grow. During a particularly difficult mission to deliver supplies to a remote base in harsh weather conditions, her transport aircraft encountered severe turbulence and equipment malfunctions that would have forced most pilots to abort the mission. Sarah's calm response and innovative problem-solving allowed her to complete the delivery safely, earning commendations from both her superiors and the ground forces who desperately needed the supplies she carried. News of Sarah's performance during this mission reached senior Air Force leadership, including some officers who were involved in discussions about expanding combat roles for women. The military was under increasing pressure from Congress and advocacy groups to provide equal opportunities for qualified personnel regardless of gender, but resistance remained strong among many traditional military leaders. Sarah's exceptional record made her an ideal candidate to participate in experimental programs designed to evaluate women's performance in combat-related roles. When the opportunity arose to join a test program for advanced fighter training, Colonel Williams strongly recommended Sarah for the position. The program would involve intensive training on the military's most advanced fighter aircraft, followed by evaluation exercises designed to assess combat readiness. The selection process for the program was extraordinarily competitive. Candidates were evaluated on their flying records, physical fitness, psychological profiles, and leadership potential. Sarah's application stood out not just for her technical qualifications, but for her consistent performance under pressure and her ability to innovate solutions to complex problems. When Sarah received notification that she had been selected for the Advanced Fighter Program, she felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This was the opportunity she had dreamed of since childhood, but she understood that her performance would be scrutinized more closely than that of her male colleagues. Success would open doors for other women with similar aspirations, while failure could be used to justify continued restrictions on women in combat roles. The Advanced Fighter Program was based at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, home to some of the military's most sophisticated aircraft and most experienced pilots. Sarah's arrival at Nellis marked the beginning of the most challenging and rewarding phase of her career. The training would push her to limits she had never experienced, testing not just her flying abilities, but her capacity to think tactically under extreme pressure. The other participants in the program were all highly experienced pilots with years of combat or combat-related experience. Sarah was not only one of the youngest participants, but also the only woman. Some of her fellow trainees were supportive and professional, focusing on the shared challenge of mastering advanced fighter tactics. Others were openly skeptical about her presence in the program, viewing her selection as a political decision that compromised the program's integrity. Sarah's approach to these interpersonal challenges was consistent with her character. She focused on performance rather than politics. During the first week of training, she demonstrated that her skills were equal to or better than those of her male colleagues. Her ability to quickly master complex aircraft systems and adapt to new tactical scenarios impressed even those instructors who had initially doubted her qualifications. The training aircraft used in the program were state-of-the-art fighters equipped with the latest avionics and weapon systems. Sarah had to learn not just how to fly these sophisticated machines, but how to use them effectively in simulated combat situations. The aircraft were faster and more maneuverable than anything she had previously flown, requiring split-second decision-making and precise control under extreme physical stress. During one early training exercise, Sarah was paired with Captain Mike Rodriguez, an experienced F-16 pilot who had initially been one of the most vocal skeptics about women in the program. The exercise involved a complex air-to-air combat scenario where they had to work together to defeat a numerically superior enemy force. Sarah's tactical thinking and precise flying allowed their team to achieve objectives that most instructor pilots thought were impossible given the scenario parameters. Captain Rodriguez's attitude towards Sarah began to change after that exercise. He started to see her not as a political statement or social experiment, but as a skilled pilot who could contribute to mission success. This shift in perspective among her fellow trainees was crucial for Sarah's development in the program, as effective fighter pilots must be able to work seamlessly as part of a team. The physical demands of fighter pilot training were unlike anything Sarah had experienced. The high G-forces generated during aerial combat maneuvers put enormous stress on the human body, requiring pilots to maintain consciousness and decision-making ability while experiencing forces that could easily cause blackouts. Sarah's smaller stature, which some critics suggested would be a disadvantage, actually proved beneficial in some situations where her lower body mass allowed her to tolerate higher G-forces than larger pilots. More challenging than the physical demands were the mental requirements of air-to-air combat. Fighter pilots must process vast amounts of information simultaneously, monitoring aircraft systems, tracking multiple targets, coordinating with wingmen, and making tactical decisions, all while flying at speeds that leave no margin for error. The cognitive load was enormous, and many experienced pilots struggled to adapt to the intensity of modern aerial combat. Sarah's background in transport operations, which some had viewed as a limitation, actually provided valuable experience in managing complex systems under pressure. Her years of coordinating with air traffic control and managing aircraft systems during long flights had developed mental discipline and multitasking abilities that proved essential in fighter operations. As the training program progressed, Sarah's performance continued to improve. She developed a reputation for innovative tactical thinking, often finding solutions to combat scenarios that surprised her instructors. During one exercise designed to be nearly impossible to complete successfully, Sarah identified a weakness in the enemy formation that allowed her to coordinate an attack that achieved complete mission success with minimal friendly losses. The instructors began using Sarah's approach to that exercise as an example of creative tactical thinking for future classes. Her solution required not just individual flying skill, but the ability to coordinate multiple aircraft in a complex maneuver that demanded precise timing and communication. The exercise demonstrated that Sarah possessed not just the technical skills to fly fighters, but the tactical acumen and leadership abilities required for combat operations. Word of Sarah's performance reached the highest levels of Air Force leadership. Senior officers who had been skeptical about women in combat roles began to reconsider their positions based on concrete evidence of her capabilities. Her success in the program was becoming a powerful argument for expanding opportunities for qualified women throughout the military. However, not everyone was pleased with Sarah's achievements. Some traditionalists within the military viewed her success as a threat to long-established norms and worried that political pressure to integrate women into combat roles would compromise military effectiveness. These concerns led to increased scrutiny of the program and pressure to find reasons to question the validity of Sarah's performance. The final phase of the Advanced Fighter Program involved comprehensive evaluations that would determine whether participants were qualified for assignment to operational fighter squadrons. The tests included complex air-to-air combat scenarios, precision strike missions, and coordination with ground forces during close air support operations. Each exercise was designed to replicate the challenges that pilots might face during actual combat operations. Sarah approached the final evaluations with the same methodical preparation that had characterized her entire career. She studied enemy tactics, practiced emergency procedures, and worked with her fellow trainees to develop coordinated approaches to the most challenging scenarios. Her dedication and systematic approach to preparation impressed even those instructors who had initially been skeptical about her abilities. The evaluation flights were conducted over several weeks, with each participant facing a series of increasingly complex challenges. Sarah's performance was consistently exceptional, demonstrating not just individual flying skill, but the ability to lead and coordinate with other pilots during high-stress situations. Her calm demeanor under pressure and innovative tactical thinking set her apart from other participants in the program. During the final evaluation exercise, Sarah faced the most challenging scenario of the entire program. She was required to lead a four-aircraft formation against a numerically superior enemy force while protecting friendly ground troops and coordinating with air defense systems. The exercise was designed to test every skill that participants had developed during the program, requiring split-second decision-making under extreme pressure. Sarah's performance during the final exercise was extraordinary. She managed to coordinate her formation to achieve complete air superiority while successfully protecting the ground forces and maintaining communication with all supporting elements. Her tactical decisions were so effective that the evaluating officers had to review the exercise recordings multiple times to fully understand the complexity of her approach. When the evaluation results were announced, Sarah had achieved the highest scores in the program's history. Her performance exceeded that of seasoned combat pilots with years of operational experience. The results were so impressive that they had to be verified by multiple independent evaluators before being officially recorded. The success of Sarah's participation in the Advanced Fighter program had implications far beyond her individual career. Military leadership could no longer argue that women lacked the capabilities required for combat aviation based on concrete evidence rather than assumptions or prejudices. Sarah's achievements opened the door for other qualified women to pursue similar opportunities and help change official policies regarding women in combat roles. As Sarah prepared for her first assignment to an operational fighter squadron, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From a young girl watching planes in the Montana sky to becoming one of the military's most skilled fighter pilots, her path had been marked by constant challenges and the need to prove herself repeatedly. But she had never wavered from her belief that excellence would ultimately overcome prejudice and tradition. The assignment orders that arrived specified her posting to the 47th Fighter Squadron, an elite unit with a reputation for taking on the most challenging missions. The squadron was based overseas in a region where tensions were high and the possibility of actual combat operations was very real. Sarah would finally have the opportunity to prove that her years of training and preparation had prepared her for the ultimate test, real combat against determined enemies. As she packed her belongings and prepared for the deployment, Sarah thought about all the people who had supported her journey. Her father, who had encouraged her unusual dreams. Colonel Williams, who had mentored her through the political challenges of military life, and even former skeptics like Captain Rodriguez, who had learned to see past preconceptions to recognize genuine ability. The night before her departure, Sarah stood on the flight line looking at the fighter aircraft that would soon be hers to command. The sleek machines represented the culmination of decades of technological advancement and thousands of hours of her personal dedication to mastering the art of flying. Tomorrow, she would begin the next chapter of her career, one that would ultimately test everything she had learned and determine whether all the preparation had been sufficient. Sarah's story was just beginning, but already she had proven that determination and skill could overcome the barriers that others believed were insurmountable. Her journey from small-town dreamer to elite fighter pilot had inspired other young women to pursue their own aviation dreams and had helped change policies that affected thousands of military personnel. The challenges ahead would be unlike anything she had faced during training, with real consequences for mission success and the safety of her fellow pilots. But Sarah Mitchell was ready for whatever lay ahead, confident in her abilities and determined to prove that excellence knows no gender boundaries. Her greatest tests were still to come, and the entire military would be watching to see how she performed when the stakes were highest and the margin for error non-existent. The heat rose from the tarmac like visible waves as Sarah climbed out of the transport aircraft that had brought her to her new assignment. The overseas base was a sprawling complex of runways, hangars, and support buildings situated in a region where political tensions had been escalating for months. The local climate was harsh and unforgiving, with temperatures that regularly exceeded 100 degrees during the day and sandstorms that could ground aircraft for hours at a time. Colonel Marcus Thompson, commander of the 47th Fighter Squadron, was waiting to greet Sarah when she arrived at squadron headquarters. Thompson was a career fighter pilot with over 20 years of experience and multiple combat deployments. His reputation for demanding excellence from his pilots was legendary, and his squadron had consistently achieved the highest readiness ratings in the Air Force. Colonel Thompson's initial assessment of Sarah was based purely on her training records and performance evaluations, which were impressive by any standard. However, he was also aware of the political implications of having the first woman assigned to his squadron. The 47th was an elite unit that prided itself on tradition and esprit de corps, and Thompson was concerned about how the addition of a female pilot might affect unit cohesion. The squadron's other pilots had mixed reactions to Sarah's arrival. Some were genuinely curious about her abilities and welcomed the opportunity to work with someone who had achieved such exceptional training scores. Others were skeptical and worried that her presence was the result of political pressure rather than merit-based selection. A few were openly hostile, believing that women had no place in combat aviation regardless of their qualifications. Sarah's first few days with the squadron were spent in administrative processing and familiarization flights designed to help her adapt to the local operating environment. The aircraft assigned to the 47th were the latest model F-16 Fighting Falcons, equipped with advanced avionics and weapons systems that represented the cutting edge of air superiority technology. Each aircraft was worth over $30 million and required extensive training to operate effectively. The familiarization flights revealed challenges that Sarah hadn't anticipated during her training. The local weather conditions were more severe than anything she had experienced, with turbulence and visibility issues that tested even experienced pilots. The extreme heat affected aircraft performance, requiring constant adjustments to flight procedures and fuel calculations. Navigation was complicated by frequent sandstorms that made visual references unreliable. Sarah's approach to these challenges was characteristically methodical. She spent extra time studying weather patterns and consulting with local meteorologists to better understand environmental factors that affected flight operations. She reviewed maintenance logs to identify recurring mechanical issues caused by the harsh conditions and worked with ground crews to develop preventive maintenance procedures. Her dedication to understanding every aspect of local operations impressed the squadron's senior non-commissioned officers, who were responsible for aircraft maintenance and logistics. These experienced enlisted personnel had worked with hundreds of pilots over their careers and could quickly identify those who took their responsibilities seriously. Sarah's willingness to listen to their expertise and learn from their experience earned their respect and support. The squadron's first major exercise with Sarah participating was scheduled for 2 weeks after her arrival. The exercise involved complex air-to-air combat scenarios designed to test the unit's ability to gain and maintain air superiority against a sophisticated enemy. Sarah was assigned as wingman to Major Steve Harrison, one of the squadron's most experienced flight leaders and a decorated combat veteran. Major Harrison had initially been skeptical about working with Sarah, but his concerns were based more on unfamiliarity than prejudice. He had never flown with a female pilot in a combat role and wasn't sure what to expect. His approach was professional but cautious, focusing on ensuring that Sarah understood his flying style and tactical preferences before attempting more complex maneuvers. The exercise scenarios were designed to replicate the kind of air combat that the squadron might face in an actual conflict. Enemy aircraft were represented by pilots from other squadrons flying similar F-16s, with the advantage going to whichever side could better coordinate their tactics and execute their mission objectives. Success required not just individual flying skill, but seamless teamwork between wingmen. Sarah's performance during the exercise exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own. She demonstrated an intuitive understanding of aerial tactics that allowed her to anticipate Major Harrison's maneuvers and provide effective support during complex engagements. Her communication was clear and concise, providing critical information about enemy positions and threats without cluttering the radio frequencies. During one particularly challenging scenario, Sarah and Major Harrison found themselves outnumbered 3-1 by enemy aircraft. Standard tactical doctrine would have called for them to withdraw and call for reinforcement, but Sarah identified a weakness in the enemy formation that could be exploited if they acted quickly and decisively. Her suggestion to Major Harrison was audacious, but tactically sound. The maneuver that Sarah proposed required precise coordination and split-second timing. She would use her aircraft's superior maneuverability to draw the enemy fighters into a turning fight, while Major Harrison positioned himself for attacks from an unexpected angle. The plan was risky because it separated the wingmen and left each vulnerable to enemy attack if the timing was incorrect. Major Harrison's decision to trust Sarah's tactical judgment proved correct. The maneuver succeeded beyond their most optimistic expectations, allowing them to defeat all 3 enemy aircraft with no losses. The exercise controllers were so impressed with their performance that they requested detailed debriefs to understand how 2 aircraft had overcome such overwhelming numerical odds. Sarah's innovative tactics during the exercise became a case study that was shared throughout the Air Force fighter community. Her ability to analyze a tactical situation quickly and develop creative solutions demonstrated the kind of thinking that separated good pilots from exceptional ones. The success also validated her presence in the squadron, silencing many of the critics who had questioned her qualifications. Major Harrison's assessment of Sarah changed dramatically after the exercise. He realized that her gender was irrelevant to her effectiveness as a fighter pilot and began treating her as he would any other highly skilled squadron mate. His endorsement carried significant weight within the squadron because of his reputation and experience, helping to accelerate Sarah's acceptance by other pilots. The political situation in the region continued to deteriorate during Sarah's first month with the squadron. Intelligence reports indicated that hostile forces were massing across the border and that military action was becoming increasingly likely. The squadron's alert status was elevated, requiring pilots to be ready for immediate deployment if combat operations were authorized. Sarah found herself assigned to the squadron's primary alert rotation, which meant she could be called upon to respond to threats within minutes of notification. Alert duty required pilots to remain near their aircraft and be ready to take off on short notice, a high-stress responsibility that was typically reserved for the most experienced and reliable squadron members. The first time Sarah was called to scramble during alert duty, she responded exactly as she had been trained. The threat was an unidentified aircraft that had crossed into friendly airspace without authorization, potentially representing a hostile reconnaissance mission or probe of air defense systems. Sarah and her wingmen were tasked with intercepting the unknown aircraft and determining its intentions. The intercept mission required Sarah to fly at maximum speed to reach the target area before the unknown aircraft could complete its mission and escape back across the border. Navigation had to be precise because any deviation from the planned route would delay their arrival and possibly allow the intruder to avoid detection. Communication with ground controllers was critical for receiving updated target information and coordination with other defensive systems. Sarah's execution of the intercept mission was flawless. She reached the target area ahead of schedule and quickly located the unknown aircraft, which proved to be a military reconnaissance plane from a potentially hostile nation. Her professional handling of the intercept, including proper radio procedures and adherence to international law, prevented the situation from escalating while still gathering valuable intelligence about the intruder's capabilities and intentions. The success of Sarah's first real-world mission earned recognition from squadron leadership and higher headquarters. Her calm professionalism under pressure demonstrated that her training had prepared her for the challenges of operational flying. More importantly, her performance proved to skeptics that she could be trusted with the most critical missions that the squadron might be called upon to execute. As tensions in the region continued to escalate, the frequency of alert scrambles increased. Sarah found herself responding to potential threats almost daily, each mission providing additional experience in real-world flying conditions. The variety of scenarios she encountered, from routine intercepts to emergency responses, helped her develop the kind of practical knowledge that could only be gained through operational experience. The squadron's training schedule intensified as the likelihood of actual combat operations increased. Pilots flew multiple sorties per day, practicing everything from basic air-to-air combat to complex strike missions against ground targets. Sarah participated in every aspect of the training, demonstrating proficiency in all mission types that the squadron might be called upon to execute. During one particularly challenging training exercise, Sarah was tasked with leading a 4-aircraft formation against heavily defended ground targets. The mission required precise timing, coordination with electronic warfare assets, and the ability to adapt quickly to changing tactical situations. Leadership of such missions was typically reserved for experienced officers with years of operational flying, but Sarah's consistent performance had earned her this opportunity. Sarah's approach to mission planning was characteristically thorough. She studied intelligence reports about enemy defenses, consulted with weapons specialists about the most effective ordnance for the targets, and coordinated with support aircraft to ensure optimal timing for the strike. Her attention to detail and systematic planning impressed both her fellow pilots and the mission planners who would evaluate the exercise. The strike mission required Sarah's formation to penetrate sophisticated air defense systems while avoiding enemy fighters and delivering precision attacks against multiple targets. Success would require not just individual flying skill, but effective leadership and coordination among all 4 aircraft in the formation. Any breakdown in communication or timing could result in mission failure or simulated aircraft losses. Sarah's leadership during the strike mission was exemplary. She maintained constant awareness of the tactical situation while providing clear guidance to her wingmen and coordinating with supporting assets. When the formation encountered unexpected enemy resistance, her quick decision-making allowed them to adapt their approach and still achieve mission success with minimal losses. The post-mission debrief revealed that Sarah's formation had achieved one of the highest success rates in the exercise's history, while suffering the lowest loss rates among participating units. Her tactical decisions and leadership style had maximized the formation's effectiveness while minimizing exposure to enemy defenses. The exercise controllers noted that her performance would have been considered exceptional for any pilot, regardless of experience level. Sarah's success as a formation leader led to additional opportunities for increased responsibility within the squadron. Colonel Thompson began assigning her to more complex missions and including her in planning sessions for potential combat operations. Her insights during these planning sessions often revealed tactical options that more experienced officers had overlooked, demonstrating that fresh perspectives could enhance mission effectiveness. The squadron's preparation for potential combat operations was interrupted by an unexpected crisis that would test every pilot's skills and courage. Intelligence reports indicated that a civilian airliner had been hijacked by terrorists and was flying toward a major population center in friendly territory. The aircraft had stopped responding to air traffic control and was refusing orders to change course or land at designated airports. Sarah was among the pilots scrambled to intercept the hijacked airliner and determine the crew's intentions. The mission was extremely sensitive because the aircraft contained innocent passengers who could not be harmed, but it also represented a potential threat to thousands of civilians on the ground if the hijackers intended to use the plane as a weapon. The intercept required Sarah to approach the civilian aircraft carefully and attempt to establish communication with the crew. Standard procedures called for fighter aircraft to position themselves where they could be seen by the airliner's pilots, while using internationally recognized signals to communicate instructions. If the civilian aircraft failed to respond appropriately, the fighter pilots might be forced to take more aggressive action. Sarah's approach to the hijacked airliner was executed with exceptional skill and restraint. She positioned her aircraft where it could be easily seen by the civilian crew while maintaining enough distance to avoid creating additional panic among the passengers. Her attempts to communicate with the hijacked plane were professional and persistent, using every available method to establish contact with the crew. After nearly an hour of attempts to communicate with the hijacked airliner, Sarah observed that the aircraft was beginning to descend toward a populated area. Intelligence analysts on the ground confirmed that the plane's current trajectory would take it directly over several major cities, creating an enormous potential for catastrophic casualties if the hijackers' intentions were hostile. The decision about how to respond to the hijacked airliner reached the highest levels of government and military leadership. Sarah and her fellow pilots maintained their positions near the civilian aircraft while senior officials debated options that ranged from continued attempts at negotiation to more decisive action that could prevent a larger tragedy. Sarah's role during the crisis was to maintain constant surveillance of the hijacked aircraft while providing regular updates about its position, altitude, and apparent intentions. Her observations and professional assessments were transmitted to decision-makers who were trying to determine the best course of action based on incomplete information and enormous potential consequences. The crisis was ultimately resolved when the hijacked airliner's crew managed to regain control of their aircraft and landed safely at a designated airport. The passengers and crew were unharmed, and the hijackers were taken into custody by law enforcement personnel. Sarah's professional handling of her role during the crisis earned recognition from senior military and civilian officials who had monitored the situation. The hijacking incident provided Sarah with experience in the kind of complex, high-stakes operations that went beyond traditional military training. Her ability to remain calm and focused during the crisis while following precise procedures demonstrated the maturity and judgment required for the most sensitive missions that fighter pilots might be called upon to execute. Following the successful resolution of the hijacking crisis, Sarah's reputation within the squadron and throughout the Air Force continued to grow. She had proven herself capable of handling not just routine training missions, but real-world emergencies that required split-second decision-making and flawless execution under enormous pressure. Colonel Thompson's assessment of Sarah had evolved considerably during her first months with the squadron. His initial concerns about unit cohesion had proven unfounded, as Sarah's professionalism and skill had earned the respect of even the most skeptical pilots. Her presence had actually enhanced the squadron's capabilities by bringing fresh perspectives and innovative tactical thinking to mission planning. The squadron's training continued to intensify as regional tensions approached a critical point. Intelligence reports suggested that hostile forces were finalizing preparations for military action that would require an immediate and decisive response for friendly forces. Sarah and her fellow pilots knew that they would soon face the ultimate test of their training and preparation. During this period of heightened readiness, Sarah participated in increasingly realistic training exercises designed to replicate the challenges of actual combat. These exercises pushed pilots to their physical and mental limits while testing every aspect of their preparation. Sarah's consistent performance during these demanding exercises confirmed that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The squadron's final major training exercise before potential combat operations was scheduled as a comprehensive test of all mission capabilities. Sarah was selected to serve as mission commander for a complex strike operation that would require coordination of multiple aircraft types and precise timing to achieve success. The assignment represented unprecedented responsibility for a pilot with her limited operational experience. Sarah's preparation for the mission commander role was exhaustive. She worked closely with intelligence specialists to understand every aspect of the target area, consulted with weapons experts to select optimal ordnance loads, and coordinated with support aircraft to ensure seamless integration of all mission elements. Her thoroughness and attention to detail impressed seasoned mission planners who had worked with dozens of commanders over their careers. The exercise mission required Sarah to lead a formation of 12 aircraft through heavily defended airspace to attack multiple ground targets. Success would depend on precise navigation, effective coordination with electronic warfare assets, and the ability to adapt quickly to changing tactical situations. The complexity of the mission was designed to test leadership abilities under the most challenging conditions. Sarah's execution of the mission commander role exceeded all expectations. Her pre-mission briefing was comprehensive and clearly communicated, ensuring that every pilot understood their role and the overall mission objectives. During the flight, her calm leadership and clear communication kept the formation coordinated despite encountering simulated enemy resistance and equipment malfunctions. The mission achieved complete success with no simulated aircraft losses and all targets destroyed within the specified time windows. Sarah's tactical decisions throughout the flight demonstrated a mastery of air warfare principles that impressed evaluating officers who had decades of combat experience. Her performance validated the confidence that squadron leadership had placed in her abilities. Following the successful exercise, Sarah learned that her squadron would soon be deployed to a forward operating base closer to potential combat areas. The deployment would place them in position to respond immediately if military action became necessary, representing the final step before actual combat operations. As Sarah prepared for the deployment, she reflected on how much her life had changed since arriving at the squadron. She had proven that her gender was irrelevant to her effectiveness as a fighter pilot, and had earned the respect of colleagues who had initially questioned her qualifications. More importantly, she had developed the skills and confidence needed to succeed in actual combat if that opportunity arose. The night before the squadron's deployment, Sarah stood on the flight line, looking at the aircraft she had come to know so well. The sleek F-16s represented the culmination of decades of technological advancement and thousands of hours of her personal dedication to mastering the art of aerial combat. Tomorrow would begin a new phase of her career, one that might finally provide the opportunity to test everything she had learned in actual combat against determined enemies. Sarah's journey from skepticism and doubt to acceptance and respect within the squadron had been challenging, but ultimately rewarding. She had proven that excellence could overcome prejudice, and that determination could break through barriers that others considered insurmountable. Her success had opened doors for other women with similar aspirations and had helped change attitudes throughout the Air Force. The challenges ahead would be unlike anything Sarah had faced during training or even during her first months with the squadron. Real combat would test not just her flying skills, but her courage, judgment, and ability to make life-or-death decisions under extreme pressure. But Sarah Mitchell was ready for whatever lay ahead, confident in her abilities and determined to prove that she belonged among the Air Force's elite fighter pilots. The deployment to the forward operating base would mark the beginning of the most challenging and dangerous phase of Sarah's career. Everything she had learned and practiced would be put to the ultimate test when she finally faced enemy pilots who were equally trained and determined to achieve their objectives. The entire military community would be watching to see how she performed when the stakes were highest, and failure could mean not just personal defeat, but strategic consequences for her country's objectives in the region. The forward operating base was a stark contrast to the comfortable facilities Sarah had known during her previous assignments. Built hastily in response to escalating regional tensions, the base consisted of temporary structures, prefabricated hangars, and a single runway that had been carved out of the desert. Everything about the facility emphasized function over comfort, reflecting the urgent military situation that had necessitated its construction. Sarah's aircraft was one of 24 F-16s deployed to the base, representing the most advanced fighter capabilities available to friendly forces in the region. The aircraft had been modified for the harsh operating environment with additional armor plating, enhanced electronic warfare systems, and specialized weapons designed for the anticipated threat scenarios. The base's intelligence briefings painted a sobering picture of the enemy forces that Sarah and her fellow pilots would potentially face. Hostile air defenses included sophisticated surface-to-air missile systems, advanced radar networks, and enemy fighter aircraft flown by experienced pilots with extensive combat training. The opposition would be unlike anything most of the squadron had encountered during training exercises. Colonel Thompson's pre-deployment briefings emphasized that this assignment represented a fundamental shift from training to operational reality. Every mission would carry genuine risks, and pilot error could result in loss of aircraft, capture by enemy forces, or worse. The psychological pressure of facing real rather than simulated threats would test every pilot's training and mental preparation. Sarah's first week at the forward base was spent in intensive mission planning and reconnaissance flights designed to familiarize pilots with the local operating environment. The terrain was mountainous and complex, providing numerous hiding places for enemy forces while creating navigational challenges for attacking aircraft. Weather patterns were unpredictable, with frequent sandstorms that could ground operations for hours or days. The intelligence picture evolved rapidly as reconnaissance flights provided updated information about enemy positions and capabilities. Sarah participated in several of these missions, using her aircraft's advanced sensors to gather detailed information about potential targets while avoiding detection by enemy radar systems. The reconnaissance flights required precise navigation and constant vigilance for enemy interceptors. During one reconnaissance mission, Sarah encountered her first direct contact with enemy forces. While photographing suspected missile sites, her aircraft was detected by hostile radar systems that immediately began tracking her position. Enemy surface-to-air missiles were launched at her aircraft, forcing Sarah to use every defensive technique she had learned during training. The missile engagement lasted only a few minutes, but tested every aspect of Sarah's preparation for combat flying. She had to simultaneously avoid multiple incoming missiles while continuing to gather intelligence about enemy positions and maintaining communication with friendly forces. Her calm response and effective use of defensive countermeasures allowed her to escape without damage while completing her reconnaissance objectives. Sarah's successful completion of the reconnaissance mission despite enemy resistance demonstrated her readiness for combat operations. Her ability to maintain mission focus while responding to immediate threats impressed squadron leadership and confirmed that her training had adequately prepared her for operational flying. The intelligence she gathered during the mission proved crucial for subsequent mission planning. The first major combat operation that Sarah participated in was designed to neutralize enemy air defense systems that posed a threat to friendly aircraft. The mission required precise coordination among multiple aircraft types and careful timing to achieve success while minimizing losses. Sarah was assigned to a 4-aircraft formation tasked with attacking radar installations deep in enemy territory. Mission planning for the strike operation took several days and involved detailed analysis of enemy defensive capabilities, optimal attack routes, and contingency procedures for various scenarios. Sarah contributed to the planning process by suggesting innovative approaches that could improve mission effectiveness while reducing exposure to enemy defenses. The strike mission launched before dawn to take advantage of limited visibility that would hamper enemy defensive systems. Sarah's formation had to navigate through complex mountain terrain while avoiding known enemy positions and maintaining radio silence to prevent detection. The approach to the target area required precise navigation and constant awareness of potential threats. Sarah's first view of actual enemy positions was sobering. The radar installations were protected by multiple layers of defensive systems, including anti-aircraft guns, surface-to-air missiles, and camouflage positions that could hide additional threats. Intelligence reports had provided detailed information about the defenses, but seeing them firsthand emphasized the deadly nature of the environment. The attack on the radar installations required Sarah's formation to coordinate their approach carefully to overwhelm enemy defenses before they could respond effectively. Each aircraft carried specialized weapons designed to destroy electronic equipment while minimizing collateral damage to nearby structures. Success would depend on precise timing and accurate weapons delivery. Sarah's role during the attack was to provide suppression fire against enemy anti-aircraft positions while her wingmen targeted the primary radar equipment. The mission required her to fly directly over hostile territory while enemy gunners attempted to shoot down her aircraft. The experience of being shot at by real enemies was unlike anything she had encountered during training. The attack succeeded in destroying all primary targets while suffering no friendly aircraft losses. Sarah's accurate weapons delivery and effective suppression of enemy defenses contributed significantly to the mission's success. Her calm performance under fire demonstrated that she could execute complex combat missions despite intense enemy resistance. Following the successful strike mission, Sarah was debriefed extensively by intelligence specialists who wanted detailed information about enemy defensive tactics and weapon effectiveness. Her observations during the mission provided valuable data that would be used to improve tactics for future operations and assess enemy capabilities. Sarah's performance during her first combat mission earned recognition from higher headquarters and marked her transition from trainee to combat veteran. She had proven that her preparation was adequate for real-world operations and that she could be trusted with increasingly challenging missions. Her success also validated the decision to include women in combat roles. The enemy response to the successful strike mission was swift and aggressive. Hostile forces launched retaliatory attacks against friendly positions while reinforcing their remaining air defense systems with additional equipment and personnel. The escalation created new challenges for Sarah and her fellow pilots as they faced an increasingly capable and determined enemy. Sarah's second combat mission involved defending friendly ground forces that were under attack by enemy aircraft. The mission required air-to-air combat skills rather than ground attack capabilities, testing a different set of abilities that she had developed during training. Success would depend on her ability to locate and engage enemy fighters before they could complete their attacks on friendly troops. The air-to-air mission launched with minimal advance warning as enemy aircraft approached friendly positions at high speed. Sarah and her wingmen had to intercept the hostile aircraft quickly enough to prevent them from attacking ground forces while avoiding being ambushed by enemy fighters that might be escorting the strike aircraft. Sarah's first air-to-air engagement occurred at long range as she attempted to intercept enemy bombers before they could reach their targets. Her aircraft's radar systems detected the incoming threats while they were still dozens of miles away, providing time to position for an optimal attack. The engagement would test her ability to use advanced air-to-air missiles effectively under combat conditions. The missile engagement required Sarah to maintain radar lock on enemy aircraft while maneuvering to avoid defensive fire from enemy escorts. Her training in beyond visual range combat proved effective as her missiles successfully engaged multiple enemy bombers before they could complete their attack on friendly forces. The successful intercept prevented significant casualties among ground troops. However, Sarah's celebration of mission success was premature. Enemy fighter escorts that had been hidden by electronic jamming suddenly appeared on her radar screen, positioning themselves for attacks on Sarah and her wingmen. The situation rapidly evolved into a close-range dogfight that would test every aspect of her air combat training. The dogfight that followed was unlike anything Sarah had experienced during training exercises. Enemy pilots were skilled and aggressive, using tactics that pushed her aircraft and flying abilities to their limits. The engagement took place at high speeds and low altitudes, requiring split-second decision-making while pulling G-forces that tested her physical endurance. Sarah's first victory in air-to-air combat came when she successfully maneuvered behind an enemy fighter and engaged it with short-range missiles at close range. The enemy aircraft was destroyed, but the engagement had consumed most of her remaining fuel and ammunition. She needed to return to base quickly while avoiding additional enemy aircraft that might be operating in the area. The flight back to base was tense as Sarah's fuel levels dropped dangerously low while enemy forces continued to search for friendly aircraft to engage. She had to balance the need for speed to avoid enemy fighters against fuel conservation to ensure she could reach the base safely. Navigation was complicated by electronic jamming that interfered with her aircraft systems. Sarah's safe return to base marked her first confirmed air-to-air victory and established her reputation as a combat pilot capable of succeeding against experienced enemy opposition. Her performance during the dogfight demonstrated that her training had adequately prepared her for the mental and physical challenges of aerial combat. The post-mission debrief revealed that Sarah had engaged and defeated one of the enemy's most experienced pilots flying their most advanced fighter aircraft. Intelligence analysis of the wreckage confirmed that the enemy pilot had extensive combat experience and was considered one of their elite aviators. Sarah's victory over such a capable opponent impressed even the most skeptical observers. Following her successful air-to-air engagement, Sarah was assigned to increasingly challenging missions that required her to operate independently or lead small formations against heavily defended targets. These missions tested her tactical judgment and leadership abilities while placing her in situations where mistakes could have severe consequences. Sarah's third combat mission involved leading a two-aircraft formation against a heavily defended enemy airfield. The mission required precise timing and coordination to penetrate sophisticated air defenses while destroying aircraft and support facilities. Success would significantly degrade enemy air capabilities while demonstrating the effectiveness of deep strike operations. The planning for the airfield attack was complicated by intelligence reports indicating that the target was defended by multiple layers of surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft artillery, and fighter aircraft. The enemy had learned from previous attacks and had strengthened their defenses with additional equipment and improved tactics. Sarah's approach to mission planning involved detailed study of enemy defensive patterns and identification of potential weaknesses that could be exploited during the attack. She worked closely with intelligence specialists to understand enemy response times and develop tactics that could overwhelm their defenses before they could respond effectively. The flight to the target required Sarah's formation to navigate through heavily defended airspace while avoiding detection by enemy radar systems. Electronic warfare aircraft provided some protection by jamming enemy communications, but Sarah's formation would be vulnerable once they began their attack and revealed their position to defensive systems. Sarah's attack on the enemy airfield was executed with precision and timing that overwhelmed hostile defenses. Her formation destroyed multiple enemy aircraft on the ground while avoiding losses to defensive fire. The success of the mission demonstrated her growth as a combat leader and her ability to execute complex strike operations against capable opposition. However, the mission's success came at a cost that Sarah hadn't anticipated. During the withdrawal from the target area, her wingman's aircraft was damaged by enemy fire and began losing fuel rapidly. The situation forced Sarah to choose between completing her escape or remaining with her wounded wingman to provide protection during an emergency landing. Sarah's decision to escort her damaged wingman to safety demonstrated the loyalty and courage that define the best fighter pilots. She remained with the wounded aircraft despite the increased risk of being intercepted by enemy fighters, providing navigation assistance and protection until both aircraft reached friendly territory safely. The successful rescue of her wingman earned Sarah additional recognition and demonstrated that her courage extended beyond personal survival to protecting fellow pilots. Her willingness to accept additional risk to help a colleague reflected the esprit de corps that was essential for effective squadron operations. Sarah's performance during her first several combat missions established her as one of the squadron's most reliable and effective pilots. She had proven capable of succeeding in air-to-air combat ground attack missions, and complex strike operations against sophisticated enemy defenses. Her adaptability and tactical innovation made her a valuable asset for increasingly challenging missions. The enemy's response to continued air attacks was to concentrate their remaining aircraft at a few heavily defended bases, while improving coordination between ground-based defenses and fighter aircraft. This change in tactics created new challenges for Sarah and her fellow pilots as they faced more concentrated opposition during each mission. Sarah's fourth combat mission involved attacking one of the enemy's primary air bases where intelligence indicated they had concentrated their most capable aircraft and experienced pilots. The mission would require penetrating the heaviest defenses that the enemy could deploy while engaging their best pilots in air-to-air combat. The planning for the airbase attack involved coordination with multiple squadrons and support aircraft to ensure sufficient force to overcome enemy defenses. Sarah was assigned to lead one element of the attack formation, responsible for neutralizing enemy fighters while other elements attacked ground targets. The approach to the enemy airbase revealed the full extent of their defensive preparations. Sophisticated radar systems tracked the incoming formation from long range, while surface-to-air missile systems prepared to engage attacking aircraft. Enemy fighters began launching from the base to intercept the incoming attack. Sarah's first engagement during the mission occurred when enemy fighters attempted to intercept her formation before it could reach the target area. The air-to-air battle that followed was intense and chaotic, with multiple aircraft engaged simultaneously in rapidly changing tactical situations. During the aerial battle over the enemy airbase, Sarah demonstrated the skills and tactical judgment that separated exceptional pilots from merely competent ones. She successfully engaged multiple enemy aircraft while coordinating her formation's activities and maintaining awareness of ground-based threats. Sarah's second confirmed air-to-air victory occurred when she defeated an enemy pilot who attempted to ambush her formation during the withdrawal from the target area. The engagement required her to quickly reverse defensive maneuvers and transition to offensive tactics that caught the enemy pilot off guard. The successful attack on the enemy airbase significantly reduced their remaining air capabilities while demonstrating the effectiveness of concentrated air power against even heavily defended targets. Sarah's contribution to the mission's success included not just her individual performance, but her leadership of the air-to-air element that protected the entire formation. Following the airbase attack, enemy air activity decreased significantly as their remaining aircraft were consolidated at distant bases that were difficult to attack. The reduction in enemy air threats allowed friendly forces to begin planning ground operations that would require close air support from Sarah's squadron. Sarah's fifth combat mission involved providing close air support for advancing ground forces that were encountering strong enemy resistance. The mission required precise weapons delivery in close proximity to friendly troops, while avoiding civilian casualties in nearby, populated areas. The close air support mission tested different skills than Sarah's previous air-to-air and strategic strike missions. Success required constant communication with ground controllers, precise navigation to locate targets quickly, and accurate weapons delivery under time pressure while enemy forces attempted to engage both the ground troops and supporting aircraft. Sarah's performance during the close air support mission demonstrated her versatility and adaptability as a combat pilot. She successfully engaged enemy positions that were threatening friendly ground forces while avoiding collateral damage to civilian structures. Her precise weapons delivery and effective communication with ground controllers earned praise from the infantry units she supported. The success of the close air support mission marked Sarah's transition to full operational status within the squadron. She had proven capable of succeeding in every type of mission that fighter pilots might be called upon to execute, from air-to-air combat to precision strike operations to close air support. Sarah's combat record after 5 missions included 2 confirmed air-to-air victories, successful participation in multiple strike operations, and effective close air support for ground forces. Her performance had exceeded the expectations of even the most optimistic observers and had silenced critics who had questioned women's capabilities in combat roles. The intelligence reports following Sarah's initial combat missions indicated that enemy forces had identified her aircraft and were specifically attempting to target her during engagements. Her success had made her a priority target for enemy pilots who wanted to prove that they could defeat the female pilot who had become a symbol of friendly air superiority. Sarah's awareness that she had become a specific target for enemy forces added psychological pressure to her already challenging missions. She knew that enemy pilots would be especially motivated to engage her aircraft and that they might take greater risks than usual to achieve a victory that would have propaganda value beyond its military significance. Despite the increased pressure and attention, Sarah approached her subsequent missions with the same systematic preparation and tactical focus that had characterized her previous successes. She refused to be intimidated by enemy propaganda or to modify her aggressive approach to combat flying. The stage was set for Sarah's most challenging test yet, a mission that would require her to face the enemy's best pilots flying their most advanced aircraft in a scenario designed to test everything she had learned about aerial combat. The mission would determine whether her initial successes were the result of luck or genuine superiority in aerial warfare. As Sarah prepared for what intelligence indicated would be the most difficult mission of her career, she reflected on how much her understanding of combat had evolved since her first tentative reconnaissance flights. She had learned to trust her training while adapting to the unpredictable nature of actual combat, developing the judgment and confidence that separated experienced combat pilots from trainees. The next phase of Sarah's combat career would test whether she could maintain her exceptional performance when facing the enemy's elite pilots in their most advanced aircraft. The outcome would determine not just her personal survival, but would influence perceptions about women's capabilities in the most demanding military roles. The intelligence briefing that morning carried an urgency that Sarah had never heard before in Colonel Thompson's voice. Enemy forces had deployed their elite squadron to the region, pilots flying the most advanced aircraft in their inventory, veterans of multiple conflicts who had never been defeated in aerial combat. These were the pilots that enemy propaganda claimed were invincible, the ones their military leadership boasted could not be beaten by any opposing force. The enemy elite squadron flew aircraft that represented the cutting edge of their military technology. Advanced stealth capabilities made them difficult to detect on radar, while sophisticated electronic warfare systems could jam friendly communications and weapons guidance systems. The aircraft were armed with the latest air-to-air missiles and flown by pilots with decades of combat experience. Intelligence reports indicated that the enemy elite squadron had been deployed specifically to counter Sarah's squadron and restore enemy air superiority in the region. Their arrival represented a significant escalation in the conflict and would test friendly air capabilities against the most capable opposition they had yet encountered. Sarah's role in the planned response to the enemy elite squadron was central to the mission's success. Her proven combat record and tactical innovation made her one of the few friendly pilots with the experience and skill needed to engage such capable opposition. The mission would require her to lead a formation against numerically superior enemies flying superior aircraft. The mission planning session for the engagement with the enemy elite squadron lasted throughout the night as staff officers attempted to develop tactics that could overcome the enemy's advantages in aircraft performance and pilot experience. Standard approaches would likely result in heavy friendly losses without achieving meaningful success against such capable opposition. Sarah's contribution to the mission planning process was a tactical innovation that surprised even experienced staff officers. She proposed using the enemy's confidence and aggressive tactics against them by drawing them into a carefully planned ambush that would neutralize their technological advantages while exploiting weaknesses in their operational procedures. The tactical plan that Sarah proposed required precise timing and coordination among multiple aircraft operating in complex terrain. Success would depend on enemy pilots reacting predictably to what appeared to be a routine friendly patrol, while hidden aircraft positioned for ambush remained undetected until the optimal moment for engagement. Colonel Thompson's initial reaction to Sarah's plan was skeptical because it relied on assumptions about enemy behavior that might prove incorrect. However, detailed analysis of previous enemy operations revealed consistent patterns that supported Sarah's tactical assessment. The plan was audacious, but offered the best chance for success against such formidable opposition. Sarah's selection as mission commander for the engagement with the enemy elite squadron represented unprecedented responsibility and risk. Success would validate her tactical judgment and leadership abilities, while failure could result in catastrophic losses that might affect the entire strategic situation in the region. The pre-mission briefing that Sarah conducted emphasized the importance of discipline and timing to mission success. Every pilot had to execute their assigned role precisely, while remaining flexible enough to adapt to unexpected developments during the engagement. The margin for error was minimal when facing such capable opposition. Sarah's own preparation for the mission included detailed study of enemy pilot profiles and tactical preferences based on intelligence gathered during previous operations. She needed to understand how each enemy pilot would likely react to various scenarios while preparing contingency plans for multiple possible developments during the engagement. The launch of Sarah's formation occurred before dawn to take advantage of limited visibility that would complicate enemy detection efforts. The aircraft were configured for maximum stealth and carried specialized weapons designed to penetrate advanced defensive systems. Electronic warfare systems were prepared to counter enemy jamming and communications intercept capabilities. Sarah's formation consisted of 8 F-16s, flying in loose formation to avoid detection while maintaining the ability to coordinate attacks when the engagement began. The aircraft were crewed by the squadron's most experienced pilots, all volunteers who understood the risks involved in engaging the enemy elite squadron. The flight to the engagement area required precise navigation through mountainous terrain that provided concealment from enemy radar systems while offering multiple escape routes if the mission had to be aborted. Sarah's formation maintained radio silence while following predetermined courses that would position them optimally for the planned ambush. The first indication that enemy aircraft were approaching came from ground-based radar systems that detected multiple high-speed contacts moving toward the engagement area. The enemy formation consisted of 12 aircraft flying in a combat spread that demonstrated their pilots' experience and confidence in their superiority. Sarah's tactical plan required her formation to appear vulnerable while actually being positioned for a coordinated attack that would catch the enemy pilots off guard. The deception involved flying patterns that suggested routine patrol activity, while concealed aircraft moved into optimal attack positions. The enemy elite squadron's approach to Sarah's formation revealed the aggressive tactics and supreme confidence that had made them successful in previous engagements. They moved to attack positions quickly and decisively, apparently convinced that their superior aircraft and experience guaranteed victory against any opposition. Sarah's command to initiate the ambush came when enemy aircraft had committed to attack courses that left them vulnerable to the hidden elements of her formation. The carefully planned coordination allowed friendly aircraft to achieve surprise while engaging from optimal positions that maximize their weapons' effectiveness. The initial moments of the engagement were chaotic and violent as 12 enemy aircraft suddenly found themselves under attack by what they had thought was a smaller, less capable formation. Sarah's tactical innovation had achieved complete surprise, allowing her pilots to engage from advantageous positions while enemy pilots struggled to understand what was happening. Sarah's first engagement during the battle occurred when she intercepted the enemy formation leader who was attempting to coordinate a response to the unexpected attack. The enemy pilot was flying the most advanced aircraft in their inventory and had decades of combat experience, representing the ultimate test of Sarah's abilities. The dogfight between Sarah and the enemy formation leader was unlike anything she had experienced during her previous combat missions. The enemy pilot was skilled and ruthless, using every advantage that a superior aircraft provided while demonstrating tactical judgment refined through years of successful combat operations. Sarah's aircraft was pushed to its performance limits as she attempted to gain an advantageous position against an opponent who seemed to anticipate her every maneuver. The enemy pilot's experience showed as he forced Sarah into increasingly difficult tactical situations while maintaining offensive pressure that tested her defensive skills. The turning point in Sarah's engagement with the enemy formation leader came when she recognized a pattern in his tactical approach that revealed a weakness she could exploit. The enemy pilot's aggressive style, while effective against most opponents, created brief opportunities for a skilled pilot who could time her responses precisely. Sarah's successful missile engagement against the enemy formation leader occurred after a prolonged maneuvering battle that had tested every aspect of her flying skills and tactical judgment. The destruction of their leader disrupted enemy coordination and provided Sarah's formation with the initiative needed to press their attack. While Sarah was engaged with the enemy formation leader, her wingmen were achieving similar success against other enemy aircraft. The element of surprise and superior positioning had allowed friendly pilots to engage enemy aircraft before they could fully deploy their defensive systems or coordinate effective responses. The aerial battle lasted only minutes, but the intensity was unlike anything that most of the participating pilots had experienced. Aircraft maneuvered at the limits of their performance, while pilots made split-second decisions that determined survival or destruction. The training and preparation of both sides was tested under the ultimate pressure of mortal combat. Sarah's second victory during the engagement came when she intercepted an enemy pilot who was attempting to escape after his aircraft suffered damage during the initial attack. The pursuit required her to follow the enemy aircraft through complex terrain while avoiding ground-based defenses that were attempting to protect their retreating pilot. The chase through mountainous terrain tested Sarah's low-level flying skills as she pursued an enemy pilot who was using every available technique to avoid destruction. The enemy aircraft's damage reduced its performance, but the pilot's experience allowed him to maximize his remaining capabilities while seeking sanctuary in heavily defended airspace. Sarah's final missile shot of the engagement required precise timing and accuracy as the enemy aircraft maneuvered desperately to avoid destruction. Her weapons system performed flawlessly despite electronic jamming attempts, and the enemy aircraft was destroyed just short of reaching the protection of their air defense systems. The aftermath of the engagement revealed the extent of Sarah's formation's success against the supposedly invincible enemy elite squadron. 8 enemy aircraft had been destroyed, while Sarah's formation suffered no losses, a result that exceeded the most optimistic projections from mission planners. Sarah's personal contribution to the mission's success included 3 confirmed air-to-air victories and tactical leadership that had enabled her entire formation to achieve unprecedented success against such capable opposition. Her innovative planning and flawless execution had validated her position among the military's elite fighter pilots. The intelligence analysis of the engagement revealed that Sarah's formation had defeated some of the enemy's most experienced and capable pilots, including several aces with dozens of victories. The psychological impact of the defeat was as significant as the tactical consequences, undermining enemy confidence in their air superiority. Enemy propaganda that had claimed their elite pilots were invincible was exposed as false by the documented success of Sarah's mission. The defeat of their best pilots by a formation led by a woman was particularly damaging to enemy morale and recruitment efforts among their own air force. The mission's success had strategic implications that extended far beyond the immediate tactical victory. Enemy air operations were significantly reduced following the loss of their elite squadron, providing friendly forces with air superiority that enabled ground operations to proceed with reduced opposition. Sarah's role as mission commander during the engagement with the enemy elite squadron established her as one of the most capable tactical leaders in the Air Force. Her innovative planning and successful execution under extreme pressure demonstrated abilities that transcended traditional combat flying skills. Following the successful engagement, Sarah was called to brief senior military leaders about the tactics and procedures that had enabled such overwhelming success against supposedly superior opposition. Her insights influenced tactical doctrine and training programs that would prepare other pilots for similar challenges. The media attention that followed the mission created international recognition for Sarah's achievements, while highlighting the broader success of policies that had opened combat roles to qualified women. Her success became a powerful example of how merit-based selection could enhance military effectiveness. However, the enemy's response to their defeat was to deploy even more advanced aircraft and experienced pilots to the region in an attempt to restore their air superiority. Intelligence reports indicated that they were planning a massive air offensive designed to overwhelm friendly defenses through sheer numbers and firepower. Sarah's squadron would face their greatest challenge, yet as enemy forces prepared to launch the largest air operation of the conflict. The upcoming battle would test not just individual pilot skills, but the entire friendly air defense system against an enemy determined to achieve victory regardless of cost. The intelligence briefings about the planned enemy offensive revealed that hostile forces had concentrated nearly their entire air force for the operation. Hundreds of aircraft would participate in coordinated attacks designed to achieve local air superiority while destroying friendly air capabilities on the ground. Sarah's role in the planned defense against the enemy air offensive would require her to engage multiple enemy formations while coordinating with ground-based air defense systems. The complexity of the operation would test every aspect of her leadership and tactical abilities while placing her in the most dangerous situations of her career. The preparation for the enemy air offensive included intensive mission planning sessions where Sarah worked with staff officers to develop defensive tactics that could counter overwhelming numerical odds. Her experience and tactical innovation would be crucial for developing approaches that could minimize friendly losses while maximizing damage to attacking forces. Sarah's squadron had been reinforced with additional aircraft and pilots, but they would still be significantly outnumbered when the enemy offensive began. Success would require superior tactics, better coordination, and individual pilot performance that exceeded anything they had previously achieved. The final briefing before the expected enemy offensive emphasized that the upcoming battle would determine air superiority for the entire region and potentially influence the outcome of the broader conflict. Every pilot understood that their performance during the next few days would be crucial for strategic success. Sarah's personal preparation for the upcoming battle included review of every aspect of air combat tactics, while ensuring that her aircraft and weapon systems were optimized for maximum performance. She knew that the enemy would specifically target her based on her previous successes, and that survival would require perfect execution under extreme pressure. The night before the expected enemy offensive, Sarah stood on the flight line looking at her aircraft and reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a young girl dreaming of flight to one of the military's most respected combat pilots, her path had been marked by constant challenges and the need to prove herself repeatedly. The upcoming battle would be the ultimate test of everything Sarah had learned and accomplished during her career. Success would validate her place among the military's elite pilots while demonstrating that excellence transcended traditional boundaries and expectations. As dawn approached and radar systems began detecting the massive enemy formation approaching friendly territory, Sarah prepared for the battle that would define her legacy and determine whether her years of preparation had adequately equipped her for the ultimate challenge in aerial warfare. The radar screen in the command bunker showed a sight that no one had ever seen before. Over 200 enemy aircraft approaching in coordinated waves that stretched across the entire width of the tactical display. The enemy had committed their entire available air force to an operation designed to achieve total air superiority through overwhelming force rather than tactical finesse. Sarah's aircraft was one of only 48 friendly fighters available to counter the massive enemy offensive. The numerical odds were more than 4-1 against friendly forces, a disparity that traditional military doctrine suggested was insurmountable without significant advantages in aircraft performance or pilot training. The enemy formation structure revealed sophisticated planning that accounted for every aspect of air combat operations. Strike aircraft were protected by multiple layers of fighters, while electronic warfare platforms provided jamming coverage and suppression of friendly air defense systems. Transport aircraft carried specialized equipment designed to establish temporary air bases in captured territory. Colonel Thompson's briefing to the pilots was stark in its assessment of the situation. Friendly forces would have to achieve individual performance levels that exceeded anything previously accomplished in air warfare to prevent enemy forces from achieving their objectives. Every pilot would need to engage multiple enemy aircraft while coordinating with ground-based defenses and maintaining formation integrity. Sarah's assignment as commander of the primary intercept formation placed her at the center of the defensive plan. Her 8-aircraft formation would engage the leading enemy elements while other friendly units attacked for flanking positions. Success would require her to coordinate defensive operations while personally engaging enemy aircraft in numbers that tested the limits of tactical possibility. The tactical plan for defending against the enemy offensive relied heavily on Sarah's proven ability to innovate under pressure and coordinate complex operations involving multiple aircraft. Her formation would serve as the anvil against which other friendly units would hammer enemy formations, requiring her to maintain position and effectiveness despite overwhelming numerical odds. Sarah's pre-mission briefing to her formation emphasized the historical significance of their mission, while acknowledging the extraordinary challenges they would face. Every pilot understood that failure would likely result in enemy air superiority that could determine the outcome of the broader conflict. The final system checks on Sarah's aircraft revealed that everything was functioning at peak performance levels. Her aircraft had been loaded with maximum ammunition, while fuel loads were calculated to provide optimal endurance for extended combat operations. Electronic warfare systems were programmed with the latest enemy signatures and countermeasures. Sarah's formation launched 30 minutes before the estimated arrival time of the first enemy wave, providing time to reach optimal intercept positions while checking all systems and communication links. The formation flew in combat spread to maximize radar coverage while maintaining the ability to coordinate attacks once enemy contact was established. The first visual contact with enemy aircraft occurred when Sarah's formation was still 50 miles from the main enemy force. Advanced enemy reconnaissance aircraft were attempting to gather last-minute intelligence about friendly defensive positions while providing targeting data for following strike aircraft. Sarah's decision to engage the enemy reconnaissance aircraft demonstrated the aggressive tactics that had characterized her previous combat successes. Rather than allowing enemy scouts to complete their missions, she led her formation in a high-speed attack that destroyed all reconnaissance aircraft before they could transmit critical intelligence. The destruction of enemy reconnaissance aircraft provided Sarah's formation with the element of surprise as the main enemy force approached without current intelligence about friendly positions. The enemy commanders would have to rely on outdated information, while Sarah's pilots had complete awareness of enemy dispositions and intentions. The first wave of enemy strike aircraft approached in a formation that demonstrated both their confidence and their commitment to overwhelming friendly defenses through sheer numbers. Over 60 aircraft flew in coordinated elements that would saturate friendly defensive systems while providing mutual support against intercepting fighters. Sarah's initial engagement with the enemy strike formation required her to coordinate attacks by her 8 aircraft against a force that outnumbered them more than 7-1. Traditional tactics would have suggested avoiding direct engagement in favor of hidden, run attacks, but Sarah's assessment was that allowing enemy aircraft to reach their targets would result in strategic defeat. The aerial battle that began when Sarah's formation engaged the first enemy wave was unlike anything in the history of air warfare. 8 friendly aircraft maneuvered through a formation of 60 enemy aircraft, while attempting to disrupt their attack, while avoiding destruction by overwhelming defensive fire. Sarah's first victory during the massive engagement occurred when she intercepted the enemy formation leader, whose aircraft was coordinating the attack on friendly ground positions. The enemy pilot was flying in the center of his formation, protected by multiple escort aircraft that immediately moved to defend their commander. The dogfight for the enemy formation leader took place in the midst of the larger battle as dozens of aircraft maneuvered in the same airspace while engaging targets of opportunity. Sarah's ability to maintain situational awareness while conducting individual combat demonstrated the tactical skills that separated exceptional pilots from merely competent ones. Sarah's successful engagement of the enemy formation leader disrupted their coordination and created opportunities for her wingmen to attack enemy strike aircraft before they could complete their missions. The destruction of enemy leadership elements had effects far beyond the individual aircraft losses. While Sarah engaged enemy fighters, her wingmen focused on the strike aircraft that represented the primary threat to friendly ground forces. The specialized attack aircraft were heavily armed but less maneuverable than fighters, creating opportunities for skilled pilots to achieve multiple victories if they could avoid escort fighters. Lieutenant Jennifer Walsh, Sarah's most experienced wingman, achieved 3 confirmed victories against enemy strike aircraft in less than 5 minutes of combat. Her aggressive tactics and precise weapons employment demonstrated the effectiveness of the intensive training that all squadron pilots had received. Captain Rodriguez, who had initially been skeptical about women in combat roles, found himself relying on Sarah's tactical coordination while engaging enemy aircraft that outnumbered his element 4-1. His previous doubts had been completely replaced by professional respect for her combat leadership abilities. The first wave of enemy aircraft was ultimately defeated despite their numerical advantage, but the